There's a lot of wisdom in talking about learning to live in the present, but there's also some nonsense that gets spoken often enough, and that's generally a kind of simplistic take on this idea of living in the present. So a person will deny the importance of living in the past or living in the future. They'll say, don't live in the past, don't live in the future, only live in the present. Well, that's not possible. Certainly it's not possible in a healthy way. A healthy consciousness is one that is well oriented to the past, the present and the future. For one thing, because the present is a sliding concept. The future will become the present. And also because if you only live in the past, then you've got problems. If you only live in the future, you've got problems. But if you only live in the present, you've got problems. Precisely because of this sliding fact about the notion of the present. What do I mean? Well, the future is going to become the present. So if you want that future place that you'll be in to be a good place to be, you need to make sacrifices in this present moment, in this present time. For the future to be good, you obviously have to make sacrifices. Sacrifices in terms of hard things that you have to do, positively do, but also in terms of saying no to certain things. Overeating all the time in the present can make the future worse in different ways. Okay, but I guess one point I just want to make today is to acknowledge that because of this fact about us, and because this fact about us has enabled us to make life good, and has enabled us to be the people who survived. Our ancestors were those who sacrificed for the future. They got through, they survived in over 200,000 years, they produced us. So we've got it written into our genes to sacrifice for the future. And this is actually a good thing. So I want to acknowledge that it also makes it harder to live in the present. But I want to acknowledge it in that proper way, that more sophisticated way, that naturally you're oriented toward the future. And so it's hard for you to become present-centered or present moment-centered. Naturally that's the case, but that's not because there's something wrong with you or something wrong with us. It's actually because there's something right with us. We survive and we make this world. Look at this world here. It's not a cave. There's a plumbing system. There's electricity. There's peace and the rule of law involved in this. There's wonderful things here that are all the product of sacrificing the present for the future. So naturally it's going to be hard to live in the present. But that's where a certain balance needs to come at a certain point as well, because if I just live for the future now, I'm not going to really be happy and my days are going to slip by as if in a dream. So to not live in a dream and to really savour my life and to be present in my life, I have to come back to the present as well. And that's a challenge because I've been... evolution has turned me into a creature, has produced a creature that is always thinking of the future. So yeah, it's a challenge, and this is why I'm interested in philosophies like Epicureanism, which in part are about really coming to live in the present and savour the present. But this shouldn't be done as a kind of condemnation of us in terms of our difficulty in living in the present. It's only natural that we find it hard to live in the present, but we need to accept that and appreciate that for the good value that it has, for what it's created, and then try and orient ourselves back to the present, not as a condemnation of this other part of ourselves or a pathologizing or anything, but just as an appreciation of what has made this present so good, and then increasing the degree to which we're also oriented to the present. So it's a matter of balancing all these things. You can't just have one or the other.